So welcome back to Sometimes I Quilt. My name is Katie and sometimes I really do quilt, bizarrely. What we're doing this week is we're having a start. I finished a quilt over the weekend, well, a quilt top, and it's just about to go off to the Long Almond to have them do their thing. And so what we're going to be working on today is a new start. And this is one that I've been looking forward to starting for quite some time. It's something that I've put off starting, and I'll explain why I've put it off in a moment. What I'm looking at doing is a bookcase quilt. Now, I've never made a bookcase quilt before. I've looked at them. They had a moment a few years ago with the Harry Potter Fandom and Stitches, I think it was Project of Doom. That was not really my vibe. So I've kind of wanted to do one, but have held off until something that I really wanted to do popped up, which it has. So a few months ago, Nerdy Quilter Designs had a sew-along for a Fantasy and Fae bookcase quilt. Now, it happened at a time when I couldn't participate, but I signed up, got all the emails, got all the patterns, downloaded them all. They're all still available. I'll link below. But what we're doing is we're going to have a start with that, which brings me to my next problem. What background will I use? So what I'm going to do is talk through in the start my design decision when it came to the background, the kind of quilt vibe that I want, but also, you know, what the other choices are out there as well. So this is the pattern, and I'm going to start in a pretty logical place with an early block that is quite literally just the book spines for A Court of Thorn and Roses. But the challenge with this is that what it has meant is that I've needed to start and I've needed to decide what my background is going to be. And that's actually going to be a bit of a problem, because the vast majority of quilts that I've seen for this style of quilt have been a really dark background or a really light background and lots of really bright colours. So these are kind of what I initially pulled to start with. So we've got all of the necessary book spines there, and I'm missing one. But you get the picture. Bright colours to represent the different bright colours of the Court of Thorn and Roses books, Sarah J. Maas's books. And these would usually go on a dark background or a really light background, so either a white or a black, which is great. But I wasn't quite convinced that that's what I wanted to do with my quilt, because this is actually my quilt. It's going to be for me. So what I was thinking is, what would happen if A Court of Thorn and Roses was put out as some sort of, I don't know, penguin edition with, you know, fabric covered and all the pretty and all of that sort of stuff. So I went into my repro stash, because, you know, I've got one of those. And I pulled out some different options that potentially could work for the kind of vibe that I'm looking at for my bookcase quilt, because it is mine. Obviously not the right colours in the right order and all the rest of it, but this here is more the vibe that I'm going for. So all of the other books in the bookcase would also be similarly coloured, similarly placed. I don't know what's going on with my lighting there. But then this brings in a question of background. So I polled well, I texted some photos to a friend and she helped. And I've came back with 3 different options. So I'm going to just step people through that. So to start with, I thought about, what about Kona Bellini as my background? So it's a soft pink. It could work. So if we have a look at that as a background. Now I'll have to be careful that my pinks aren't too matchy. But as a general vibe, that could work. But then I thought, but then when we get to the end and we're trying to work out what the bookcase themselves look like, maybe I need something a little bit more repro-ish. And then I just sort of happen to have a bolt of this one. So if we put that out, could that work as a background? It could. I thought about it. The reality is that it would give sort of like it would be sitting on a wallpaper background rather than a flat background or something like that. It would be like the bookshelf if we've got to consider what the shelves themselves will come into play, and that was the whole thing. But what I think I've decided on in the end, which I think might be a good choice, but not the choice I thought I'd end up with, is when I first decided to do this quilt, I bought a heap of background that is a mottled black. So there's black and grey and a bit of silver and that sort of thing. That's this fabric, which is showing up pretty true to type. Now if I put my repros on there and we have a look at what they potentially are going to look like as books, see, that could work. And I think in the end, this is what we decided, the hive mind. We decided that I was going to do is keep the black background. Now, my reasoning. The solid would work. It'd be a good choice to have the solid. But getting things that I need to think about the finished product. When I get the shelves in place, what color then the shelves going to be? What is the vibe of the general vibe of the whole thing going to be? The black isn't flat in terms of there's some texture there. It's going to be a little bit more forgiving in the piece background elements when we start to put some creatures in. It's going to be a little bit better to hide some of the, not imperfections, but to camouflage some of the other elements, where a solid would probably do that, but I have concerns about the pink. My challenge with the print, while it's a good choice, it's also a directional. So there are fine lines down the back of it, and I worry that, well, I'd be able to tell. So I thought in the end, what I would do is go with the black background and then start to think really deliberately about what the shelves are going to look like and what the surrounds are going to look like. And I'm contemplating working out what goes around my bookcase as well as being sort of like wallpaper. So trying to find the right sort of print to do that as well. But that's future Katie's problem, and we will deal with that when it happens. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to make this first block to test it all out and see how we go. Now, in making the first block, what I've already done, and you'll probably notice that on the pattern, is I've stuck the pattern together the way that it needs to be. So these are 10-inch blocks finished. Obviously 10 inches doesn't fit on an A4 or a letter a US standard size piece of paper. So you've got to print it out and stick it together, which is what we've done. So I've stuck the pattern together. The other thing that I've already also done is I've marked where the background pieces are and also what the books are, because then when I'm putting the fabric down, I can get the right color to fit that book, even though we're going for a special edition, fancy, you know, fabric colored penguin adjacent type of jobby. Anyhow, we're going to do something unusual and go across to the machine and sew this block and see what it looks like. Okay, so we've sewn the block. It's all here. I think I've got everything in the right order. I am at a point where I don't mind if it is or it isn't. So now we're going to trim it up and we're going to turn it over and see what the front looks like. Could I be better at cutting? Yes. Now, one of the things that I like about these patterns is all of the 1/4 inch seam allowances are around the outside already. So when I'm finished, it's just a matter of turning everything and trimming it back to size. Now I'm going to also do one more cut internally to this to make it all sit better. I'll show you in a second. Go back here. What I want to do is, because I actually sewed that one a little bit big, actually a lot big. We'll pull that back. I'll check and make sure, oh yes, I can cut this bit. So I'm just cutting back. Cutting back to 1/4 inch. And there we go. There is our first finished block in approximately the right colours, doing approximately the right thing. Let's see how long it takes me to make another pluck. See you next time.